You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Hello, and good afternoon, or at least it's good afternoon in my area. Yes, I am wearing my new Neo DVR Value Edition. I put them on a headset now so that I can have VR all the time. No, just kidding, but we'll talk about that in a little while. So this is 3D in Review for, what day is it today? Oh, now I've already forgotten what day. Oh, I guess it's the 26th. And we're covering this week, and there's a lot to cover. It appears my co-hosts have both abandoned me today. No, actually, Chris has had another, I wouldn't say family emergency. He's got to pick up his dog from the vet, had some surgery today. And I guess James is missing in action. So I'm covering it myself, which means we'll probably get through it pretty quick, but we do have a couple of guest crashers today that I'll introduce in a little while. And on that particular note, let's get right into the first item. And that is, hey, would you believe it? More stuff about space. As you know, and this is one of the reasons I played the little video, SpaceX has been using 3D printing to do some of their components in their rocket engine, but it appears the ESA is also doing something familiar. So I'll play this little the video here. And so as you can see behind me, actually, let's see what we got here. There we go. So there's the engine that they used. It's part of, I can't remember what particular rocket it is, but you know, like the SpaceX using a platinum-based 3D printing extrusion system, they've done the same thing here. It's very unique in the fashion that they're able to create these 3D components at a much better tolerance. In fact, they say even at a more durable or rigidity than if they had done this from the old standard techniques. Supposedly this was a complete success. So now we've got two space agencies, or SpaceX as well as ESA, that are now 3D printing things for rockets. So pretty cool there. And thanks to ECN, you can head out there to find out more. They've also covered a lot of other items as well. So let's move on into the next item. And I'm just going to keep plowing through and catch on to my items. And then we'll jump back a little bit later. We've got actually two guests today. and I may jump to one to the other. The other one is the Carbon 3D system, the ultra fast Clip 3D that we saw months ago, and we thought, is this real? Is it not? We debated how it worked, how it didn't work, but it really looks like people are starting to utilize the technology. Here we've got Ford, believe it or not. Actually, I think they're one of the more forward automobile companies, so I'm not surprised. They're using it, and then I've got another clip a little bit later. We have a 3D effects company who's using it as well for some props that they created for the Terminator movie. But in the car industry, like I mentioned, Ford is utilizing it. And then obviously, if you want to know more about the Carbon 3D, if you've been watching this show, you may be tired of hearing about it. But the cool thing is it prints up to 200 times faster than standard SLA. Components can be of better, what would you call it? Not necessarily detail, but smoothness because of the type of technique it uses. It doesn't literally use a layer system, as they call it. That's kind of a little bit of a misnomer. There's still a layer process, but because they can do it so rapidly that it creates almost a continuous flow. And here's some examples of some parts that are being made. So if you want to head out to 3Ders.org, thank you for this article, and you can read more about it. So on to the Legacy Effects, who creates a lot of the cool stuff that's especially practical effects, who have been using 3D. In fact, I saw them at Maker Faire. They've done something in the next movie, Terminator Genisys. And as you remember in our last episode, I ended with the Arnie hanging out in the wax museum and scaring the bejesus out of a lot of ladies. No, just kidding. But it was kind of a fun little thing. But they are making props and things for they're known for doing all kinds of practical effects for other movies, as you can see in this image here, to name a few. But having this, obviously, the Carbon 3D, they'll allow them to turn around some very precise components, which, I guess the 3D print industry for movies has got a lot of money. I've heard, no one has really mentioned, I think one time we mentioned this thing is going to be like $10,000. I haven't heard anything since, but I haven't looked into it. Here they're showing you the time period, 6.5 minutes versus a PolyJet SLS and SLA. And obviously that is one of the fantastic things about this technology. It is super quick. And then they show the smoothness here of standard 3D printing versus their version. And so you got two pluses, speed and smoothness. And hopefully the price isn't too exotic that only the rich or those who are doing this for like 3D effects in movies can afford it. I hope it's even at 10,000. I think that could be reasonable, especially what you can produce with it. I think any more than that, it's going to price it out of a lot of people's price bracket. But if you're doing this for a business, the more parts you can churn out, obviously the more money you can make. So it all depends on, I guess, how you look at this. So it may not be a consumer product, but I think it's going to be a head turner when it actually comes out to a larger audience. So that's two items there. And then I'm going to go right into Chris's item, which is Simplified 3D. Simplified 3D I have been working with for over a year now. It's a very nice program. It works with a lot of FDM printers. They've just added to that. But the other thing that they've offered is a new 3.0 upgrade. Now, I've had an opportunity to work with the 3.0 upgrade for about a week now, and I had printed out a couple of components over the previous weekend. And I found that it is faster. I noticed that it's slicing, I'd say, give it a figure, 10 to 20% faster. I like the fact is, and you can see it here, they've added a honeycomb infill pattern now. So it's one of the things I liked about the MakerBot. So now you can do that within the Simplified 3D. I don't have dual extruders, as I mentioned. My son does, who hopefully will be here on later on. And he should have the download. I was hoping to get it for him to give us a test on it. But they've added a wizard now so that you can actually, without a lot of work, extrude multiple colors. And then, as I mentioned, infills, patterns have changed. It is faster. The user-friendly interface updates, there's a few of them that I like. It has the ability now to lay out the bed a little bit quicker. I don't know about quality. I did notice it in my parts. But if you can see here, it probably changes the way that the head rotates, and if you notice some spidery there, so I'll have to go back and look at to see if some of my parts that are open like this also have similar results. But I didn't notice it in any of the parts that I was doing. But yes, I think overall it is faster. The infill patterns are cool because I like honeycomb. It seems to have some nice streamlined features in the interface, but if you didn't want anything to change from that perspective, it didn't. It looks just the same. A lot of the tools still remain the same, so performance, some new infills, and they say smarter printer profile system. I didn't really notice any changes, but I pretty much used my own. One caveat, if you're going to upgrade this, it does not seem to bring your profiles over from your previous version, so you're going to have to import those manually. It's not hard. When you export, I can't remember the suffix now, just look for those, maybe put those in a separate folder and then just import them in. So it's not that difficult. It says it supports quite a few more printers. I haven't tested that, but even though that they provided some upgrades to the 1, 2, 3 line of printers, or I'm sorry, the XYZ printers, I think that was a big news, and obviously they keep adding printers. Now keep in mind, this is not an open source product. There is a cost to it. If I remember correctly, it's about $139, and some people would complain that they don't have a demo that you can work with, but some people, their argument is you really don't get the opportunity to work with it. They do have a money-back guarantee, if I remember correctly, so you do have to buy it, but I think it's money well spent. So if you're interested in Simplified 3D and you've just been waiting for honeycomb infill, then go ahead and move forward with it. So there you go. All right, so Chris has one more item. And actually, where am I at? Okay, let's kind of get into it. You know, we have a special guest with us from Autodesk, and if you're out there, why don't you introduce yourself, please, and we'll get right into his item. So while you're talking, I'll go ahead and pull it up since he's not here to do it, and introduce yourself, please.
Awesome. Well, Michael, can you hear me okay?
Curtis, I can hear you great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me again, sir. Well, my name is Kurt Chan. I am one of the technical evangelists on the Fusion 360 team, based in beautiful San Diego, California. And today we'll be kind of talking about just a mixture of what we've done to the product and where we're going. You know, Michael will kind of give you an idea that, or I'm sure if you've heard, or if you're on 10 links or any of these CAD CAM websites, is that we came out with a really large release.
Everything has been designed,
you know, recently. And the thing about it is, you know, we came out with a big release on.
There you are.
20th. There I am, right there. I don't even know you're gonna show this video. But it's that first CAD CAM platform, you know, built natively on the Mac as well as Windows. So
so it is available on the Mac as well. So that's a good point. And I'm just a Windows guy. Actually, I do both. I do development and iOS, so I have to work with a Mac. But that's good to know.
Yep. Yep. And not only that, Michael. A key thing here is, you know, it's the one solution. You know, I have, you know, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and I've, you know, worked at, you know, the big companies like the defense background from, you know, Northrop to Lockheed, and then, you know, what came aboard and spent a lot of time, you know, with the competition. And you look at where we're moving at Autodesk and our vision of a one-tool integration, right? I think a lot of us, even I was talking with a couple of our customers, and even you brought up something we were talking through email, Michael, was that, you know, you export to an IGIS, or you export to another file to bring it in to do something else in another CAD or CAM software. And the beauty about our product is, honestly, is that it's a one tool. So it's everything from design to rendering to fabrication, all in one single environment. And it doesn't matter where you are or what type of OS system you're using, it's all encompassed into one piece. So enough about me trying to sell you on Fusion, which I'm not a sales guy, but at least you know the value and you can see what it's about. Take a look at our website, download it, give it a shot, 30-day free trial if you're not familiar with it. I think it's a whole nother way. I mean, our slogan is designed differently, and there's a reason why we call it that. We want to take that next step, right? You know, times have changed. One thing that our CEO has said, I'll end with this before we can talk a little bit more, is,
Okay.
you know, people are designing.
And by the way, Chris, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we did have him on for an interview, so I've been a great
Perfect.
fan of him as well. So go ahead.
Perfect.
Sorry to
Great.
interrupt
No,
you.
no, no. That's great. Great to hear that. You know, I've looked into so many talks to him and see him at the pier. Is that, you know, he says, you know, a lot of people back in the day, you know, are designing products of the future with, you know, 30-year-old technology, or technology that's really hasn't evolved a lot from other products that are out there. And the nice thing about us is that, you know, we come out with updates every 6 to 8 weeks with our product. So the key is, anytime, everybody is always going to be on the latest and greatest, and that's really powerful when you're working with CAD and you're working with change at the end of the day. So we can definitely jump in and talk a little bit more about our release. Wherever you'd like to go, Michael, let me know.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do right now, and that's I'm going to bring up this image. This
Sure.
is something that I did with the renderer, and this is, you know,
Please.
I had worked with an earlier version that didn't have the render, but I now noticed that it's a light-based, I call it photon, but I don't think I'd know if it's exactly like that. But
Okay.
this is something I rendered. It's a product that I'm creating called the NeoDVR. So I've used this product literally to render, and it's, in my opinion, very photorealistic, and more importantly, super easy to use. There's not a lot of controls. You know, a lot of these 3D packages throw everything at you, which I kind of like, but sometimes knowing what tools and keeping them limited to give you the best results, to get something out quickly, is important as well. So you kind of did a good trade-off there, and as you can see here, it looks like the actual product itself. In fact, well, I don't have that particular version, but I'll jump back to my camera.
Mm-hmm.
This is something else that I've been designing. It's still a prototype, but I've designed a new faceplate for a product called the Humido headset using Fusion 360. And I was able to render, do everything, fit the pieces, like you said. I was able to bring in their models and continue to design with it. So, yeah, I have to agree with you. It's that tool that allows you pretty much to bring in anything and work with it. And like you said, we're going to talk a little bit later, or at, you know, when we're offline. My only huge issue with it, and I've mentioned this before to your tech support, is the cloud function sometimes gets in the way because it's not completely asymmetric in it's or asynchronous in its loading. It seems to bog a little bit. And then the other thing we talked about briefly is the history. If you start loading up that history, that really puts an issue with it. But you gave me a tip there, and so one of the things that I recommend, and I think we have it in the show notes, in fact I think James is going to talk about, you've got a great forum for lots of tips. You've got a lot of instructional videos. Take the time, use them. And the other thing that I want to point out, you said there's a 30-day trial, but if I remember correctly, this is still free to students and what do you call it, entrepreneurs or
enthusiasts. Yep.
enthusiasts. So I guess under a certain amount of value, and that is for the basic version. You also have the ultimate version. At the time I came into it, I think it was $300. I don't know what the price is now, but it's still very reasonable. And if you're familiar with any 3D package like Inventor or SolidWorks, you're looking at least $5,000 to buy into it. Now you get the robustness of those tools for a lot less money. And I've been very excited because I've been on the fence on SolidWorks because it's just too damn expensive. And now I've got a tool that isn't. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future as far as in how to compete with you. Now there's another product, and because I haven't remembered it, I haven't used it that much, but there's another company that kind of, not necessarily spun off, but some of the people that were part of SolidWorks created a product that, in my opinion, seems to compete a little bit with the way Fusion 360 is. And like I said, since I don't remember the name, obviously I can't mention it, but you're aware of it.
Of course.
How do you see them? Do you just see them as you know, a major competitor, or do you see them kind of pushing your game a little bit?
I think, you know, Michael, to kind of, if you mind taking a step back and just, you know, I loved what you showed me right now, the goggles. I love the rendering. I think one key thing too is that if you haven't tried our cloud rendering out yet, try it.
Oh, I have.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I use it for the turntable
Yep.
where you're doing multiple. I've got enough horsepower to do something like this very quick, but to have things go in the background and go back to modeling or whatever you're doing, that's a great feature with the cloud stuff. One caveat behind that, at least in my case with the Ultimate license, you've got, what do they call it, only so many renders or that you're limited to. So it's not a free-for-all. I can't remember how many they gave me. So make sure you use them judiciously. And I guess my question is, what if you run out of them? Do you purchase more? How does that work?
Correct. So if with our latest release, what we've actually offered was additional cloud credits too. So if you haven't used it this week, or check it out, but we're offering more cloud credits to people that do have Ultimate, as well as you will be able to purchase them in general. So you're going to be able to purchase them. I don't know the ratio of what the cost for each unit is. We're still ironing that issue out. But in regards to rendering, even if you're a student, all that's free for you guys. So go and download it, and you can still render on the cloud completely for free. But to address your question, though, what you mentioned about the competition is, one thing we've noticed and what we're seeing, Michael, is the involvement of community. And I think you even said it yourself right now, is that our forums, we are really active in our own community, and our responses to you, the customer, saying, I have this issue, or why, when I work with the timeline, I'm seeing these issues. You can post that and someone will answer, and it's not just some intern guy replying back to you. It's our development team. If you look too, I don't know if you noticed, Carl Bass replies back to customers on our forums page. So check that out, because he's really big in the CAM, and I think that's another big thing that really gives us a step above the competition is integrated CAM, integrated solutions. As I rock the Autodesk CAM shirt.
Well, another important point to mention is that the Fusion 360 now supports, at least in the Ultimate version, 5-axis CAM functionality. And I think with the basic it's 3, if I remember correctly. But that's an important point, and obviously if you've had to work with CAM, it's a little more than just standard 3D printed extrusion. There's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration with it. Now, I haven't used that feature yet, so I can't talk about it. However, from the examples I've seen, it seems to be fairly robust. But there's another thing I want to talk about, and I cut you off before you get a chance to talk about that last time.
Please,
is you've offered in this new upgrade, and like I said, James was supposed to be with us. For some reason, he's not. So if I see his note there, I'll talk about it. But you offer in this new version, and I haven't had a chance to try it yet because, as I mentioned earlier, I use Simplified 3D and just send my STLs into another product that I work with. But now it seems like I can stay within the package as you indicated, because you've now embedded or incorporated the new 3D print tool that I've been reading about in the last few months. So you want to talk about that, a little bit about that and what it consists of?
Of course. So we're giving you a sense of choice inside of Fusion. And when we talk about 3D printing, I'm sure you guys are aware of Spark. That's our platform behind 3D printing that is, you can say, open source. With the partners that we have going on, every Windows 10 license will come with Spark on it. That's coming out too. So we're having some great publicity and partnerships around that. But how it works inside of Fusion, though, this is really key, is that not only can you go to Print Studio or Mesh Mixer, which is, think about it as the easy button for 3D printing. You want to take your object, your STL, slice it, or add some supports, and then send it to a Type A or Stratus, a MakerBot, an Ember, whatever you want. That's that transitional phase, because as you mentioned earlier, it's the ease of use, and that's what we want to deliver to our customers. But also, Michael, I don't know if you've tried to mess around with this a little bit, is that we made it even easier for the people that maybe don't want to 3D print. We actually now have a way to say, hey, send a quote. We have partnered with BrightHub and some of these other Proto Labs and some of these other partners out there, to where you can just take your model, say, give me a quote, and it will load their website and quote you on how much it would cost to print this in ABS Plus, or how much it will cost to get this machine. Yep.
Were you reading my mind or something? That's my next step.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's what it is. You guys are clairvoyants over there.
No, we're listening to you, Michael. We're listening to our customers. That's what we're doing. No, but it's great. I mean, I'm glad to hear that from you, because we have access to 3D printers. You have access to a 3D printer. But for the people that don't, for the people that are new to this new technology and don't want to invest in that entry-level $1,000 or $500 printer, they have a way just to say, you know what, I'm just getting into 3D modeling, and I just want to make this. give me an idea before I have to invest all this money into a
Yeah.
3D printer and all this. So it's
And
nice.
in my case, even though I do have 3D printers, I don't have the high quality ones, not the $100,000 units that Shapeways and others have, or if I want to get into injected molding. So I use mine to create the basic prototypes, look for fit, finish, usability, and then I move to Shapeways to create either a finished product, but now that you're telling me I can actually send quotes out for a larger part count, either and obviously you have the tools in there to support injected molding. I really like that idea because that's the direction I'm looking at going in the future, because the sad thing, even though Shapeways provides, in my opinion, a very good quality product, they're expensive. And you know, you got to make a choice at one point of when you're going to take that leap, pay for the mold, and get these done in a lot less money or count of money. Sadly, injection molding is still the way to go if you want to do things in volume.
Yep.
So I'm glad to hear that I can do a turnkey system without having to make a lot of changes and see what it's going to cost me before moving forward with it. So,
Yep.
you know, again, you guys are clairvoyant over there.
And you talk about 3D printing. That's just one side of the equation, right? With CAM and that piece, you're seeing the evolution of the desktop CNC, right? The days that, you know, we saw of, you know, you got the production Haas or the DMG Mori. Now we're able to bring it to the maker onto a desktop, and you're going to see our partners like, you know, Pocket MC, the first 5-axis desktop CNC machine, which I just got.
Interviewed them at Maker Faire up in San Diego, and plus 2 other people. So I know that CNCs are still very active. They've got some big ones, some smaller ones. In fact, I think one of them is called My CNC or something like that. But it's like a little tabletop version. So it's still live and active. And, you know, I'm working with a dentist I did an interview with, comparing SLA models of my teeth versus the standard technique, which is milling. It was still 10 times faster, and the accuracy was still better. So there's still some advantages with CNC. So don't think that 3D printing is the only solution, and I'm glad that Fusion 360 and Autodesk doesn't think so.
No.
All right, so I've done a little bit of the talking here to move it along. Curtis, if you want to hang on later on, even if it's just me, I'll ask some offline questions, but I really appreciate you coming on and kind of bring it up. We had like 3 or 4 items. James was going to bring up something about. Let me see if I can get to the note.
Sure, take your time. Take your time.
Oh, I can. I've got to. The show has to keep moving.
Well, you can always contact me offline. You have my contact information. Feel free to share it. Go to our forums. Go to our YouTube page. I mean, we're here to help.
Okay, so what he's got here is newest update adds distributed design, aka linked components.
Correct.
And he has already found a benefit to that because now it allows them to use components in different designs without having to bring them all in. And I have to attest to that. Sometimes loading things in can be a bear, and now that you can link them in, that's another great feature. So, yeah, too bad he's not here. He's going to be envious that I'm talking to you and he isn't. But like you said, he will have your email address, and that may be. You may not want. You'll regret that. But okay, so let's get back in. And if you're not aware, my format now in this show is to cover some of the recent news items, but then get into specialty areas. And my next specialty area is what I call Scanner Darkly, where I'm talking about scanner technology. As you know, I do a lot of scanning, and I also design some products around there. And one of the products that I've been working with some time, and if you go out to my Sketchfab site, you can see them for yourself, and that is ITSYs. ITSYs came out of nowhere, and I worked with some of the beta testers when they were first working it. They're out of Russia, and I did an interview with them, I'd say, gosh, 8 to 9 months ago. So they've been around for a while. Well, they just keep constantly improving and improving this product. You know, one of the things, if you look at some of mine, and some of them kind of have gone viral, is that it's like looking at a photograph. But the big difference is the photograph moves. And, you know, there's some caveats. I feel the mesh model leaves a little bit to be desired, but, you know, since they were working in the cloud, you know, how much can you push up? You got to limit the size. Plus, they're efficient models if you're going to be using them something else. But for 3D printing, I think that leaves a little bit to be desired. But that's why we have Gil sitting in the background. He's going to tell a little bit about his service in a moment. But this program here is just amazing. obviously, it's free if you're a consumer. They do have a professional model, so if you plan to do a professional model that you need to contact with them, I think their pricing has changed. But one of the features they've added with the 3.0, which I think is extremely cool, is the lack of cloud function now. You know, a lot of times I've talked about in the past, one, that it appears to make it slower, and the other thing is I'm concerned about having my data up in their cloud. Now, I've never heard of anybody having issues with that, but again, having something up into somebody else's cloud, even though that they promise that it's secure and private, you know, that can concern some people. So now they have a feature that allows you in a lower quality form to do all the scanning on your device. And I have a sneak feeling that had to do with the fact is that now that the structure sensor, in fact, occipital and their SDK5 has supported higher definition textures that may have played a role here. But here's a comparison between two. The one on the left is the preview model. The one on the right is the final. Yes, there is some differences, but not too great of a deal, especially if you want to do a quick preview before sending it up in the cloud. I know in some cases I wait till the end of the cloud and realize that part of my texture didn't come out right. So you're wasting 5 to 15 minutes. Here you get it back in seconds. Says, oh, got to do a new scan. The other thing is, and I commented on this, I think I told them, I said, you guys must be competing with me. Some of their earlier scans left, in my opinion, a little bit to be desired. I guess they figured out that great even lighting has a lot to do with providing a good scan. One of my products that I'll boast about is called Neoti Bright that I'm now promoting, will be out in July or August, is an LED bar that fits on the front of your iPad device, especially if you use a Neoti mount device like I produce, which is a case system, to provide even lighting. So the key is you have to go around an object, and unless you've got the best lighting or a rotating platform, it's not that easy to do in a mobile or portable form. So that's the reason I came up with the lighting bar. There are other solutions, but I think that one is easy and fits in your pocket. All you need is a 5-volt source, and there's a lot of those out there. So hats off to them. This is really a good looking scan. And if you're not aware, they also do full body scans. So it's a great little product. As mentioned, it's free, but you do need a structure sensor or an iSense, and you do need an iOS device. But the product itself is free unless you're starting to do professional work, and they've got a paid service for that. So on that note, I'm going to move right into my next guest crasher, and that is Gil, who runs a service called Clean My Scan. Now, we just talked about scanning. Now, this is obviously their first page, but I want to go right to something that I saw earlier, and this is the detail. Now, one of the things that I just talked about is that something like Itzy's, let's see if I can, where did it go? There we go. One of the things that's a problem with these lower res scanners is that they don't pick up a lot of detail. And I mentioned to Gil prior to the show starting that I do create a lens system called 4Eyes that can actually get a lot of the detail that he sees here. Not quite this. However, they obviously have the skill set there at his company to be able to provide that extra detail. So you provide them the basic mesh model that you see here, and then they give you this higher quality RTEC scanning. Now, if you're familiar with what I talked about, RTEC scanners, their lowest priced scanner is $10,000. Their higher part is 20, and I think they now just put out one that's close to 30 that's going up with NASA. But the point is, I can't afford one, or I can't get enough scans to pay for it. So if you need this kind of quality and they've got some skilled artists, you may just send it to them. They'll send it back to you, and then you can even have it printed. And then he was telling me, and I'm going to let him talk at this point because I'm doing all the talking for him. Gil, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Gil. I'm from a company called X3D. I am the CEO of that company, and this is one of the services that we run. It's called Clean My Scan. So basically, Clean My Scan, I'll tell you a little story about it. So I was doing the same thing. I was scanning doing a lot of scans. Like everybody else, started with a Kinect and bought a pro license on Scanect and started scanning people. And I was very happy. I had a 3D printer at my place, and I started printing people, and I was very happy with whatever shape I was getting. It looked something like me, wasn't quite there. But then because then I had some designer friends who took the file and worked on it for 15-20 minutes, and there was the result, and it blew my mind. And then we decided that yes, it's a service somebody else needs too. And like you're showing at the moment at the on our website. So the services, let me take you through one by one.
Sure.
The scan cleanup is the first service that we offer. Like as it says that scanners cannot take the best, can do so much. Then you might be needing the scans to do a lot more than that. For example, so the scan cleanup is the very basic facility where you just send us the scan data. We work on it. Either it's the textures which need the work, or it's the mesh. We clean the mesh. We take out the errors wherever they are, and we detail it for you. And if required, and then we send it back to you. This is certainly a service which is required for scanners, people who are using either photogrammetry or even Arctic for that matter, because the textures need a lot of work on those. And even the meshes, there are holes, and as the line says, I mean, scanners can do a lot of great work, but then there are broken meshes and dirty textures. And then, photogrammetry, I think if somebody's into 3D scanning, photogrammetry has been there for a while. And, right now it's getting mainstream because of the figurine business. And that's quite a business that we do. So what we offer is the full photogrammetric process. So if you have a system already in place, or if you are doing samples scan with your own single camera thing, you can just send us the pictures. We'll process them and send you back the model as per your requirement with whatever texture quality you need, 8K, 16K, whatever it is. And even if you already want to do your own photogrammetry process, you just do that, and you get it back. And the third one, which is quite what we talked about right now, that is, a lot of people have access to 3D scanners. I mean, nobody knew that Kinect can be used, and when Kinect became a 3D scanner for people with these easy softwares, a mass adoption started taking place, and that is something which is very interesting. I think that is what making the space very interesting, at least on the consumer level. And so we detail those scans for you. You do those basic scans. You send us reference pictures if there are, even if there aren't any. We'll be good with that. We have artists who understand where to put what, and I think the results have been amazing. And the apps, like for example, we just talked about It Sees 3D. So It Sees 3D does an amazing job of capturing textures and the meshes, and it has really changed the way figurine business has been taking place. And people have these scanners which they take hundreds of scans in at a place, share them around on Facebook, or and then they want to get it 3D printed. So they send the files to us, because then we really detail the scans and make amazing textures, whatever quality there is, whatever has to be repaired, we do that, and we send them back. And a lot of work has to be done as well. I mean, hollowing has to be done so that you save cost on printing them as well. So we optimize the model, we hollow it. If you have an idea, that you can send us the idea, we can sketch from our sketches, we can make a 3D model. So it's like a studio which is dedicated to all the services. That's the whole thing about Clean My Scan, and we're working with both businesses and individuals. And with businesses, we provide a lead 3D scan, a 3D designer. So a lead 3D designer is somebody who has 5 designers under him. So with that, what we offer is 0 lead times. So if you are a business which has a photogrammetric scan, or you are, we give you a lead designer, so you can just start sending. It's like your very own team online, and they already know the workflow, so you don't have to tell them. Just tell them what the end result should look like, and they will make it happen. And the best thing that our service offers is enterprise level data security, because every workstation that there is no way nobody can take away the data, and even the entries are being monitored, and everything is under monitoring. And because that is something I think is a bigger concern, where people should be sure that if they're sending us the data, it shouldn't end up on the web, on somebody's portfolio. So that we take care of that. That is something we take very, very seriously, data protection.
Well, that's very important, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, well, a couple of things. One, it appears that you also work with Sculpteo and Shapeways. You've learned their workflow, and that's important because I've had some models rejected. One of them at Sculpteo, they have a limit on the size of the texture, and obviously you probably know all these things, so you make sure that whatever you send them works the first time. Hollowing, that's also an important thing. Too many of my prints, just by sending them direct, cost twice as much as they could have if I had just hollowed them, which I'm now doing. That's an important step.
When you're doing, especially when you're doing color printing, I'm sorry I cut you there. Especially when you do color printing, it's the material. I think the powder of the voxel jet powder, as much as you can save, I would say, because that's where the cost is going to be.
Very good point. And then obviously you appear to actually, well, you just made the comment, you actually have 3D designers there. So if you have a 2D idea, you'll be able to actually create a 3D item from it. So one of the things I didn't ask you, Gil, when we were first talking is, where are you from?
So I'm basically from Chandigarh. It's a city close to heart of India. It's called the most beautiful city in India. It was designed by a French designer called Le Corbusier. And I've spent most of my years in Orlando, Florida, where I was working with NASA to promote their educational programs. And and then I keep going back there so I spend a lot of my time in Orlando, Florida, and back home in Chandigarh as well.
Well, one of the reasons I asked that question, and I've had a couple of guests on, one that did this great supermodel called Ronan that was from India. One of the things he mentioned to me is that at the time he made this model, he was living with his mother again because the bottom fell out of the special effects market. And as you're aware of, a lot of it is 3D renderers, and there are some studios in India. So the thing that I realize is a lot of people in this country, United States, talk about, how a lot of 3D industry, 3D graphics have kind of gone the wayside because India and China have taken over. So I was a little taken aback by that even India is having some issues with in the 3D graphics market. So the reason I mention that is that's what's happened here? Have you kind of moved from special effects and gotten these people with all this talent to come together and now work in a new industry? Is that a possibility, or do you just have a lot of enthusiasts that work in 3D over there?
Yeah, so what I've done is I've, collected a bunch of crazy people. So they love 3D printing and 3D scanning. What I've done is, with my resources, I've given them access to every 3D scanner out there and 3D printer. So the best thing what we have done with them is they already know the 3D printer that you're going to use. So they use it already. They know what to do, So that is why we are able to produce the best results out there. And most of the things have been, like, for example, what I really liked about 3D scanning and 3D printing was that it was very democratic when it came to the world. Right now it's at the same level in India, it's the same level in the US. That's the thing I like, and I think it is going to be the most enthusiast where it finds, and that's the country that's going to take the lead in this. But I think when somebody asks me where you're from, I say I'm from the internet.
No, that's and again, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I did have a backstory because of somebody that I interviewed from India.
The idea is that so it's not what we really like to tell our customers is that it's not another outsourcing station or a sweatshop or anything like that. It's something, we are not just out there just to clean models. We have developed our own 3D scanner that we're going to launch next month. That is something we are very excited about. And so we were working on a photogrammetric scanner for some time. And so that is something we are very, very excited about. And then we have our own studio, franchisee that we are going to launch. It's going to be called X3D Studios. And we're going to start opening them everywhere. And we already have a lot of interest from people that we are talked to directly. We haven't really gone out with public with that. But yes, that is something we have been working on. So we are really, really, we are all about this. So we not just, we don't just put a bunch of seats and okay, you guys are going to sit there, clean scan.
No,
This is how it's.
and hopefully I didn't imply that. I just think that there's a lot of talented people, obviously, all around the world. Brazil has a lot of 3D designers. India has a lot of 3D designers. China and obviously the U.S. And I'm just wondering, because the special effects market fell out, that all of you are looking for new ways of doing things, and it just so happened 3D printing has come along, and now we can apply our skills to something new. And so, again, it wasn't to imply that you're just hiring and having a sweatshop there. Obviously, from the work that I've seen, it's talented. And I do want you to come back to me when you're ready to announce that 3D scanner. I want to hear more about that. But
Sure.
let me finish it up by, one of the things I haven't noticed on your website is pricing. So if I had a 3D that I wanted, let's say I'm too busy and I need your services, what would it cost me, let's say, for something like this behind me?
Yeah, exactly. So what we do, the reason why we don't have pricing over here is because a lot of it works on volume, and it's very hard to quote because we work with a lot of businesses rather than individuals. That's our main source of our revenue. But it's not something which is very hidden from our side. We are very open and about this. For example, like the model that you see back there, if there is no texture on it, I think it should cost you somewhere up to $20 or even lesser, depending upon the capacity that you send. We're trying to keep it at a level so that somebody will be thinking about sending us not just one or two, but a couple of 100 or 50 or something like that. But we do work on single individual models as well. We don't. Like now, I mean, we have been offering free 3D scans cleanups for some time as well. And if I can share my screen, I'll just show you the one
Sure,
which we did. Yeah. All right.
Are you familiar with the sharing?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So like right here. So if you see this, this is a scan which was sent to us by somebody in Denmark, and so they can you see it already? The girl.
Oh yeah, I can see it, and yeah, and our audience can see it as well.
Sure, great. Now, so what we did in this is, I mean, this was particularly done with the 3D Sense scanner, the old one, which from 3D System. And if you can see, the textures aren't that there. I mean, like if you see on the face, there's no detail at all. But more than that, this model, if you print on the left, if you send it to 3D printing, you can see there's a lot of dark spots over there. So what 3D printing, when you're doing especially colored 3D printing, is you need to make the model as bright as possible because there should be no shadows, because shadows look good when the model is simulating, but when you're printing it, I don't think so. Nobody wants shadow over there because it just like it casts a black thing over there, and that is something which is
here. I have an example. I'll jump to my screen real quick. That my co-host Chris I had printed. So if you notice when I show it to you, it looks great on this side, but if I turn to this side, he looks like Scarface, because when I had scanned it, that's why I created my light system, there was shading. And as you indicated, that's a big no-no, because in the reality, you allow the shading to occur from natural lighting. But also, I'm assuming that since you probably have miniature experience, you add the enhancements and shadows where they need to be in order to really create a pop-out item. So that was very nice. And obviously, it shows the capability you have. And let me jump back to by adding that extra detail, and as you've shown in your model there, in the textures themselves. So not only do you redo the mesh files in detail, but you also redo the actual textures themselves. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so it looks like James is joining us, so we'll leave him out for a moment, and we'll come back to him later. So really exciting. Glad I found you. I may be sending you something, and we'll see what we can do. If we can talk about it off air. As mentioned, I do have some accessories you might be interested. If you're not aware of me all.
We are not just as I said, it's the main company is the parent company is X3D, and X3D is going to be in hardware and software. So for example, as I was telling you, we spent the last 6 months developing a custom software for our own scanner. So it's a photogrammetric scanner, and we're trying to make it the most affordable in the market, somewhere under the range of $25,000 to $30,000, something which can change the game, at least in when we're talking about photogrammetry, and somewhere we can expect better textures, amazing textures. Somebody and we are very specific that one of the game-changing industry would be the 3D selfie industry, because that is where most of the consumer interest is right now. But yes, you can use that scanner for a lot of purposes, and it will be powered by CleanMyScan. So expect all the 3D scanning to happen right. The processing to happen in the back end, and always get a better model than the previous one. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Gil. It looks like a great service. So those of you out there who are looking to, either farm out some cleanup that you may not have time for, if you want to make them part of your workflow, talk to Gil. Obviously, he has the people behind him with the talent and the drive to do this. So again, thank you, Gil. I don't know how I stumbled upon you, but I think it's a great service, and I really make sure you get back with me. I want to see this new
I'll be here.
System. Okay. Well, on that note, I'm going to move right into my next item. And again, thank you, Gil.
Thank you.
And so let's see what we got coming up next. Oh, it looks like we got VR in a corner. No, how does that go? Man, I come up with these things and don't even say them correctly. I should stop talking here. Let us see. VR corner in a round room. There we go. So here's something that's kind of cool. Or actually not. This guy has gone through and identified that as VR is moving along, we're going to have issues with how we explain why we're seated, yet we're still moving. And some people believe that's one of the reasons why you have nausea. And one of the things that I think, not to promote NeoDVR again, is cool is because since you can move all of your body parts, the sense of any part not being realistic is gone. And so in my case, I never experienced in the hour that I was working with on NeoDVR did I even experience this. But one of the points that he makes here is that other than the HT Vive, which does allow full movement, is make sure that your demos, and they identify it here, you're doing something like seated in a car or in a mech device, in something that where you would feel naturally in an immobile condition, and then I think the brain gets fooled by that and has less issues with the nausea, instead of where you're an active first-person type character. And then they identified even if you do act as a character, act as a disembodied character where your character is running around and being controlled by your movement. But I think that that's a really neat thing, obviously an important item here, and there's a lot of work going on right now, more so than in the past, than just little demos. We're actually seeing some games. And I think he mentioned one of them is, I can't think of it. Eve is the last part, but there's, we have the Deus Ex doing a VR, and well, I can't see it now, but there's a couple of great full-length games that are coming out that were introduced at E3. So if you think this is just a demo, think again. It's changing, and people are understanding that VRs, if you're immobile, put yourself in an immobile situation. If you're active, provide the proper tools to do so. So the VR developers are working in that situation. And let's see, I guess that's about it for VR items. I was hoping to have Brian on today. He's got some cool things. Hopefully I can say this, Brian. I apologize if I can't, but you're working with the producers of a series called $1 Million something or other, where essentially they go around and they look at a lot of expensive, living places, and they brought you in to actually do VR experiences. I'm assuming panoramics or sphere-based panoramics to allow people to experience that in their VR headsets or even phones. So I think that's pretty cool. I look forward to seeing something in 3D soon, Brian, on that subject. So make sure you send it to me, and we'll make sure we bring it up in the next show. And hopefully you can actually talk about it yourself. And so James, we're almost to you. I've got a couple items in medicine, and I don't know if you were listening earlier, but we had a special guest that I know that you're going to be jealous of. In fact, I'm kind of glad you weren't there because I don't think I would have gotten a word in edgewise, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So on to the 3D and medical. We have a couple items. One, I personally think my dogs are part of my family, and I think it's very cool when we can use or apply 3D processes, in this case, 3D printing, from somebody who really isn't in the medical industry, sound familiar, to apply a process where they were able to print out this particular canine's deformed bones and then use that in order to provide the proper repairs in the surgical process. They're still recovering, but hopefully this particular pup will be able to walk again, and I'll follow up on that. But again, another cool application of how 3D printing is helping in medicine by applying the tangible models from scan processes. And then another one, we've had him on a couple of times, but the CEO of this company, Astroprint, has formed an alliance with another company to allow for what they call NIH 3D print exchange, where you put in 3D scans and then you can actually get tangible models from that. And here's an example here. So head out there if you're looking for tangible models in the medical perspective. There's a group that's creating something kind of like a thingiverse of medicine. So hats off to them. You can read more about this. I guess the exchange was started in 2014. If you don't remember, Astroprint are the people that create the little box that allows you to hook up to your 3D printer to do remote printing, and it's a pretty cool tool. I've used it in the past, and I think it'll be really neat to see what they have coming out here. Let's see, we'll play a little video here. So it looked like another skull with a lot of support material. I guess I should call them and let them know that you don't need so much support material. But yeah, as you can see here, they will have models available. I'm assuming that you can probably donate models to them. I'll have to talk to my wife about donating her skull since it's been all over the internet. But I think that's kind of neat that we're starting to see this. So if you are into studies, if you're into education, you might want to look into going out there and obtaining some of these models and printing them yourself, either in a classroom situation, or if you're looking for a model to kind of explain a situation or get a better grasp on something that you're dealing with, this might be the perfect place for it. So enough of that. Mr. James, you're up next. Unmute your mic. I'm not hearing anything. You're not talking. You cannot hear you, James. Oh well, he pulled out. I've got a couple more items before I bring him on, so I will go ahead and do that. So, this one's kind of neat. I'm going to start a new section called Shout Out, and I thought that was kind of neat. A shout out to people who are creating some really interesting 3D models, and I thought this was kind of cool. I found this on Google Plus in my searching today. I don't remember what he calls it, but obviously very neat, painted by hand from the 3D print. But look at that. I think the gentleman is from Russia, so it's kind of interesting, the teddy bear cosmonaut. Let's see, I don't know if he has an actual, but look at the detail. Pretty fabulous. It's just amazing what people are doing with this technology. Obviously, there have been tools in the past, clay and other forms, but we're just seeing so much more interesting stuff being brought out by, especially in gifted hands. So, you don't have a mute sign anymore.
Yeah, I was having problems with the mic, and I found out that it was unplugged. You know why it was unplugged?
Glad you're an engineer, right?
You know why it was unplugged? Because I had this plugged in, my little SD card reader that I've been using for my 3D printer. So,
well, there you go, another reason to get an Astroprint. So, on that note, did you get a chance? You just come in? Did you know who we were talking about earlier?
I just came in. I didn't know who that
Okay.
was. No.
So we had Curtis from Autodesk talking about Fusion 360 for
Oh,
about 15 minutes. So you'll have to go back and look at that.
I
I
will.
will provide you his email. He's willing to either come back in after this. He may be viewing or actually gone, but he said off air that we're welcome to talk to him a little bit.
Okay.
So he went through kind of the stuff that they're providing. I didn't really go into much of your items, so if you want to get back and talk about, let's get into your engineering item, and you wanted to bring up some of the new features in Fusion 360 that you're familiar with. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay. Let's see. I think let me try to open up the link.
So I can bring it up here if you'd like.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Well,
Okay,
let-
hang on.
let- that'd be
Okay,
fine.
is it a YouTube video?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of
How about
skip
let's
forward
go
a
to
little
the-
bit too.
Yeah, let's go to the next one, and then if you want to bring it up, but okay. So what is it that you found while it's
Well,
coming up?
let's just go into that then. The biggest update for me for Fusion 360 is the fact that you can create links with parts and design, as they call it. So I have a little bit of a AutoCAD background, so to me it's like an X reference, which
Very familiar
means
with X references, which is
Yep.
very important.
Yep, and so that's what it basically allows you to do is when you bring a design or a component, or not a component, but a design into another design, then it creates a link between the two. So now I'm able to work in one part and then have it update in the other. They kind of show that in the video a lot better, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Okay.
It's been
Let's see, yeah, I'll try and bring that up. And the reason for it being a big deal is that if you have a link to something instead of the actual object, you're able to keep that. I'm assuming performance is improved, but more importantly, any updates you make will go back to the original source, but you don't have to open them all up. All it does is it creates a, what would you call it, as you called it, a link,
Yeah.
which is very important because then you can create a master item or master list of catalog items and just literally reference them instead of having to build them from scratch. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, and there's a couple different benefits. In the video, it kind of shows that a team can actually work on the same design at the same time. So one person can work on that one file, then the other one can work on different files that are linked in. That's one big positive. For me, they have isolating tools, but it's just easier to work on a separate part in a separate tab than to try to isolate and hide things every single time you want to do something.
No, I totally agree with you, and I found myself doing that more and more often. Something else that I was just told today, I don't know if you use the history line, that's the timeline that's on the bottom, but I was told today that you probably don't want to leave that activated that often. Kind of turn it off, because what I've been finding is my models become more and more complicated, that timeline becomes more convoluted,
Yeah.
and it actually starts delaying your updates, which becomes frustrating because it's no longer in real time.
I turn mine off, but I start to have problems every once in a while, like with fillets. I can't change a fillet after I create it, and so
well, that is the advantage. So one of the things that I suggested that he should do in the future is be able to like consolidate a model portion that you feel secure isn't going to change in your timeline, so you don't have to worry about all those changes taking place. And so that's something they'll be considering. Currently, you can't do that. You can delete the future events, but you can't just take a chunk out. And I shouldn't say you can delete it, but sometimes it affects the things that happen in the future. Geez, it's kind of like a time movie. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that I think I have like 50, sometimes 100 changes, and it really starts to bog down.
Yeah.
And I have run in the same situation that you did, where I did turn it off, and then, like you said, you can't go back and fine tune. You can do some undos. I don't know how many undo levels there are, but you can't refine it to a particular item and just delete it specifically, which I have found useful.
And I don't think I've used before I even turned it off. I don't think I used the timeline history before. It may work really, really well. It just my head doesn't wrap around it, you know.
Oh, well, I've been using it extensively, but as mentioned, once it starts getting complicated, and especially if you bring in other models and you start modifying models that aren't yours, it really starts to bog down, and then you lose the advantage of having it. And I find myself deleting that history, sometimes regretting it, and in order to get performance. The other thing that I do, and this might be something to think about, is I get to the point and then I just create a new IGES or step file and then export that and then bring that in as a new model. That way I still have all the previous history, or you can just save a model with all your history, and then you start working with that more finished product instead of dealing with all the changes. And that really has helped improve my performance, and that's the direction that I work with more and more now.
Yeah.
So in this particular video here that you're showing us, it's showing you an example of applying materials, and we can get through maybe later on and talk about the tutorial one-on-one. We'll just go through bringing something in as, I wouldn't say two newbies, but two guys that are trying to get things done with this application instead of people that are...
It's about to show you right now.
Okay.
You see down at the bottom, it has the bike seat design link.
Right.
It's linked in now, and all he has to do is go up there and hit that refresh button, which he's going to do, and then
there it goes.
and then the changes will happen. So
now it doesn't do this automatically. So if he does not hit the refresh, then it doesn't refresh
No.
it to the original design. Okay.
No.
Well, that's really cool. And as you said, that feature is called, or in 2D world or the AutoCAD, was X-Reference, which any of the seasoned CAD workers, that was an important tool because if you worked in a multidisciplinary firm like I did, you've got planners, you've got architectures, you've got civil engineers, all working on different layers, and with X-references it makes it very easy to, one, protect your layers because none of the different departments wanted things messed up, and two, to make global changes if need be by, let's say, in our case, we had master CAD people that
Yeah.
would handle global changes for the entire company. So I'm
And
glad to see it.
I've already found a little bit of bugs with it, but
Well, what
I'm
is
sure
it? Tell us.
Well, when you want to break the link of the actual design, and then you want to, let's say you want to delete that seat off of the hardware there, it deletes everything when you break the link. So there's little bugs right now, and
You mean if you go in there and just break the link, it actually deletes the seat?
If you want to delete any sort of parts that are part of that component, it'll delete the whole thing. You can't, for some reason, do anything to it. But I think they're going to work it out. But right now, it's just a little bit bug. Plus, one other thing that on my wish list, now that they have it out, which is great, is editing right in place, like an X reference in place. That'd be great too. But I'm happy that we just get some links. So.
Nope, that's obviously a big plus, and I'll see how I can put it to use. Right now, I've got like a whole series of models all in one work area, and that can be very cumbersome. So I may start branching them out like this. Okay, well, thanks for that. Let's see where we're at now. I think that's about it, so I'm going to get into the projects real quick. So as you know, James, I'm going to Spain. It appears that I am actually going to Spain, Madrid, Spain, for that matter, and going to be doing a talk at TEDx with my wife, Pamela Siobhan, about something that we've been dealing with for the last year, and that's the removal of her tumor last May. She has done excellent, and we're going to talk about that. There's a lot of things that we did in order to make that happen, and it appears that some people are interested in it. Who knew? But from that, and if you notice, I've got my new cool episode accessory today. You know, I want to be in the VR world a lot. So one of the ways to do that is take these new glasses, which I'm going to show you, and I put them on my magnifying. So now all I have to do is bring my phone up, just like this, and hands-free, and I can have VR experiences anytime. And I just bring it back up. So I'm going to market this now, just kidding. But I thought that was a fun thing. But on that note, for those of you who are listening today and or this weekend, I've got a special deal for you. No, it's actually a thank you promotion. And that is for listening to us, because, you know, sometimes we kind of drone on and on. And for that, I have this cool little thing, and I brought it up last week. And let me finish this little video here because it's annoying me because it's still going while I'm talking. Comes in a nice case, but we brought it up last week, and that is a product I call Neoti VR Value Edition, or the Go4D C1 glass. So it comes in a nice little plastic bag, and inside there are those little glasses that we brought up last week that you clip onto the bottom of your phone, and you have a full VR experience. When you're done with them, you can throw them in your pocket, throw them in your bag. A little more compact than cardboard, and normally they sell for $20, but for my guest today, if you put in this code, and I will provide a link in the show notes, AT3D6262015, which is essentially AT3 All Things 3D with today's date, in either my Square Market store if you're an international customer, in my I can't remember, ECSD, if I remember correctly, store. This will be available to you on that promotional flag. And other than shipping, in the United States, that's $5. Outside of it, it all depends, anywhere from $6 to $8. But as a special thank you, I'm knocking $5 off the list price just for you. However, for my co-host, talk to me. We have a special price going. So again, that's the thing today, product of the week. The other one, which I don't have a note for, so I will hold it off to next week. I was hoping to have them on, but Oto I've been playing with their Octane VR, which is their rendering program that does full 360 panoramics. Pretty neat. So if you haven't tried it, it's a free demo, and actually it's free during the whole time that they've got their contest going on. Pretty neat. You essentially bring in 3D models, and then you can render them. You can put in different environments into a 360 that you can then view. They've got a viewer, but I think somebody has actually converted this to a video, so you could actually view it within Google Cardboard or other viewers. So you're not limited to it. So I'm going to have something up probably this weekend because I have something else in mind. If you're familiar with the term cube map, I'm going to use this service to create one and then apply that cube map to my VR demo that I'm working on, and hopefully we'll have done before I hit Spain. And then you've got some projects to talk about. What are they?
I sure do. Let me grab it, and you can go on to the next thing, and I'll be right
back. What
back.
I'll do is I'll go ahead and move right into my last item under Resin Heaven, which normally we have Brad with us, and it's something that I noticed. Let me jump back to my screen here. This was in the news today. There's a company called, again, forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly, Huhai CTC Electronics announced an affordable SLA printer. When I took a look at this, I said, wow, what a familiarity to another product we know of, and that's the Form 1. But and actually reduced or half the cost, $1,480 versus $3,000. Actually, I think it's a little bit more for the Form 1 Plus. But one of the things I noticed with this, one, you can tell this is actually either a working model or a mock-up. There seems to be some scratches and so forth. Me, I wouldn't know if I would make that my promotional without cleaning it up a little bit, but maybe they did it intentionally to make you realize it's not an actual 3D render. This, interesting, is either the same model but they show it here with the lid removed. Again, the striking familiarity to the Form 1 is obviously uncanny, and this particular article, again by 3ders.org, talks about it. Here are some of the models. But the thing that I noticed, it was very curious, is that in order, like many things, there's always a reason why something is of a lesser cost, and in this case it has to do with the resolution. This thing only has a vertical resolution of 100 microns. If you know anything about the Form 1 and the Form Plus, it can go down to 25 microns. Now they say it really doesn't make a difference, but from what I can see mechanically, it is very similar to the Form 1. So I think it would make a difference, because I personally see the difference when I go from 100 even to 50 or 25. Now again, the caveat is that going to a what do you want to call it, a smaller Z depth or more Z depth increases the time, and sometimes astronomically. You can almost go sometimes from 100. In some cases, I've noticed 3 to 4 times the time extension from going from 100 down to 25. So I found that with smaller parts, the 25 really works well. With larger parts, yes, I think they have a point there. But smaller things, like when I was doing my teeth, there was a big difference between going to 150. Now, their interface obviously looks different if you know what the Form 1, and they say they're using a Cura engine, which is interesting. I didn't know that they did an SLA in their Cura engine, and then they talk about it all from the perspective of a standard FDM slice through. So it would be very interesting to see what they've done differently to make this happen. The other thing is they hope to have this out in July, shipping through eBay and Amazon. So if you're still looking for an SLA, you don't need the higher quality of the Form 1. This might be something to look at. I would be a little concerned on quality, so I'd have to see more than just their parts. I also would like to see how their software works before jumping for it, because even at $1,500, that's still not cheap. But yeah, it's interesting, and there are actually a few others. I think XYZ Printing will have something in this cost range that actually will have better resolution. So they're not the only ones that have a under $2,000 SLA printer, so keep that in mind. Okay, so back to you, James.
Thank you. So my first thing I wanted to show is my Raspberry Pi cover.
So did you print that?
I printed it off of Thingiverse.
Very cool.
And it works
fantastic. Did you print me one? Is it in the mail?
Yeah, you can download it.
No, that no. How do you download a 3D printed out?
You've got a 3D printer.
Okay.
So one thing that happened during the 3D print that I have to investigate is I got a little bit of a, I guess, it got a little deformed on the side. If you could see that, and the same thing happened on the other piece. So I don't know if it's because of a certain area of my platform not heated properly or overheated.
Well, actually, because it looks like that, you might check your leveling again.
Oh, okay.
You may have some issues with compressed layers, which may have caused that deformity. But
Okay.
yes, heating could be an issue. Chris turned me on to it. Too bad the Print Whisperer can't be here. I was hoping he would be by this point. But they make these temperature gauges, or gauges, what do you want to call it? Guns, that you point at a particular area of your bed, and it will give you a temperature reading. And some of these are good up to 300 Celsius. So look into it. I think mine costs like $25 on Amazon. But that might be something to look at. It would give you a more accurate reading of your bed temperature and able to localize different regions of it.
Yeah.
So might look into that. All right, so we're going to.
I got one more. One
that's
more
right.
item.
You do have one more.
One more item.
Okay.
I wanted to see if you can print a ball bearing with a 3D printer without supports and have it actually work. And I was amazed that I actually got one to work.
So
now I want a preference that I did have to struggle to get it to move for the first time. Some of the balls were stuck to the I guess the frame, but I'm just amazed that I was able to do a ball bearing off a 3D printer. So
Now, you printed that all as one piece, correct?
all is one piece, yes.
So that's kind of neat that you did that. I did something similar to that when one of the first off, I don't know where it came from, Thingiverse or the Ultimaker website. But is that of your own design, or is it just a 3D mill?
Yeah, I think I got it off of GrabCAD.
Okay. So is that one material or multiple materials?
One material.
Okay. So yeah, and I've noticed that. So essentially you break the parts of, and I guess there might just be a fine filament or something keeping it together. And yeah. So I don't know how spherical your bearings are.
Not very spherical, but it moves actually pretty well, even though they're not perfect. But
yeah, and obviously that's the amazing thing, and especially if you have dissolvable filament, that you can create what you've been hoping to do for some time, a fully self-contained component without having to assemble it. So very neat. All right, let's end this show because, man, we're almost at 2 hours again.
Whoa.
Yeah. But we had some great guest crashers. All right, so on to my next item. Let's see what's going on, and then we will terminate the show. I guess terminate's kind of a harsh word. But let's see.
You'll be the Terminator.
Actually, that's coming out. Maybe that's why I keep bringing it up. So we have the Inside 3D Printing Conference, which we did bring up. That is happening this weekend. And then the Additive Manufacturing Expo in Switzerland on June 25th. And then while I'm going to be gone in Spain, Korea, or Seoul, Korea, we have the Protocore show, and then Printing in Shanghai 7th through 9th. So that's about what's coming up. And to kind of identify, I may or may not be here because I will be in Spain. So either James and Chris will have to run the show, or at least lead the show, and I may pop in on my phone like some of our guests have done to kind of give you the Madrid scene while I'm there. But it'll be 9 o'clock, so I don't know. I may be at dinner. If not, I have this in capable hands to do it in my absence. I hope. No, just kidding. Okay, on that note, again, remember, $5 off for being a wonderful guest, and keep that in mind. The links will be in the show notes. However, you actually have to listen to the show, and that promo code again is AT3D622015, which is AT3, all things 3D. Today's date, 2015. So please, if you're interested, you need something that's VR oriented and don't want to spend a lot of money, or just have a cool factor like me. You know, I plan to wear these a lot now. But yeah, on that, let's end this show. This is Mike Balzer from All Things 3D. This is 3D in Review for June 20th through 26th. Bye.